Welcome to the Multiply Your Success podcast, where each week we help growth-minded entrepreneurs and franchise leaders take the next step in their expansion journey. I'm your host, Tom Dufour, CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And as we open today, I'm wondering how you define and find happiness. And do you find happiness in the work you do and what you do each day? Well, our guest today is Richard Rees, and he shares with us how he has found happiness when he was a starving entrepreneur and as a successful investor. Richard has had quite an impressive career, having built a digital music distribution company that eventually took public and was later purchased by Sony Records. He also co-founded the group that acquired, took public, and grew the joint franchise system from 10 locations to more than 800 locations today. You're going to love this interview and the insights that Richard provides. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Thanks for having me on. Richard Rees. I'm a partner in Monarch Ventures and also the COO of Business Ventures Corp. Monarch Ventures is a group of advisors with franchising and business operation and organizational experience, seeking to invest in and be an active investor in concepts that we think are interesting, and in particular in the dessert space right now. Business Ventures Corp is a group of individuals who have taken several companies public in disruptive sectors. And right now, BVC is on hiatus because two of the three members are basically semi-retired, but we still are looking at opportunities.
I've had the good fortune of working with you here for coming up on, about a year or so now, and being connected in various capacities. And this interview to me has been a long time coming. You've been on my list of folks I've been wanting to get in for an interview. So I'm glad that we've been able to do this. And one of the things that I just like for you to share is just a little background, because you have such a great comprehensive background of building companies, taking them to the next level. I just love for you to share that for the listeners.
Yeah, as background, I always enjoyed the music business and music in general. So I took the passion of music and tried to figure out successfully how to make money on my passion for music. I began booking bands in high school. That led me to a job at a radio station as a salesman, and then became a sales manager, and then eventually became a general manager. And I saw that the business owners were the guys who made all the money. So I said, I want to go out and buy a radio station of my own. So I took a path and brought together a group of investors and also a mutual acquaintance of ours, and went out and bought my first radio station. Continued on that path, bought a second radio station. Actually, it turned out to be the very first radio station I ever worked at. So that came full circle in 10 years. So that was just incidental. It wasn't pre-planned, but it just worked out that way. Sold the radio stations, fast forward, started again with my passion of music. How can I make money and bring music to the masses and to people? I started a digital distributor, a record label and a digital distributor. We became one of the first digital distributors on iTunes right at the launch of the infamous iPod. And eventually, there was only so many of us doing the digital distribution in that space. I was approached by Business Ventures Corp CEO, who lived in Austin as well. And he was curious about what we were up to. And he said, if you can gather up a few of your acquaintances or your peers, we'll take you public. That went public, did very well. It was eventually bought by a division of Sony. Sony still owns it. Fast forward, Business Ventures and I, again, opportunity knocks in Austin, Texas. We ran into a concept called The Joint, chiropractic. I had always used chiropractic throughout my life, if you will. The unique thing about the model was it was no appointments, which always drove me crazy with chiropractors because they kept crazy hours. And it was a cash-based model. And we went, this is really intriguing. So we went out and found the owner. The Austin location was a franchisee. There was around 10 open at the time. It was back in 2009. Made a deal with Dr. Fred Gerritsen, the founder of The Joint. and said, listen, we'll put some money in, but we're going to surround you with a great team of people. And he was more than willing to admit that he knew what he didn't know and let us run with it. That eventually went public, and that has gone from 10 locations back in 2010 to over 800 now. And they're on path to be at 1,000 by the end of 2023. That's their goal. That company went public in 2015. But I was actively involved in the first 4 years as a board member. We were very, very hands-on. But over time, we had built a team to where we slowly stepped back. And from there, I've just been, I don't want to say, I've been going after things that I'm passionate about and also working with people that I enjoy working with. As you know, our mutual acquaintance, Eric Slaymaker, and I go way back, and we kept looking for an opportunity to work together again. We were business partners first, became very, very good friends later, even though we were involved earlier. But fast forward, we've been looking at different opportunities, and we know what we don't know. And really, we also would like to give entrepreneurs our experience as an advisor or an active investor. So there's a lot of building blocks. I call myself a serial builder because I frankly, after 3 or 4 years, I brought in a team, if I've done my job right, that can run the show and enjoys running the show. And if you reward the team well, they'll take care of you. And again, that comes back to also picking the right team and a lot of nuances involved there. I mean, as you know, there's a lot going on in picking the team and managing the team, et cetera.
Thank you for sharing the background there. And I just want folks, when they listen into this, to understand the depth and breadth that you're bringing to this equation. And as you've invested in, taken companies public, grown brands, been this business builder, what have you noticed about some commonalities or common themes between some of the organizations or leaders or companies that you've helped take to that next level and grow?
It's really about a good team and also a good board, whether that's a formal board of directors or a group of advisors or relying on a network. For me, I think the biggest impediment that entrepreneurs and business owners put on themselves, if you will, is that they think they can do it all. Early on, I was lucky enough to now look in the rearview mirror and say, well, these people were actually mentors. Well, there were people that were just helping me along the way. And back then, I didn't really know the term mentor. And then I went, oh, those guys were helping me out because somebody else had helped them out. So I think that is the big takeaway for me is a business owner or entrepreneur that is open to ideas and knowing that they cannot do it all.
That makes a ton of sense. And so much of our audience, oftentimes being franchisors, emerging franchisors, business leaders that are thinking of franchising, they've got franchising on their mind in some capacity. What have you found as some of the common characteristics in these different franchise ventures and organizations and groups you've been involved with? What are some things you've seen that help make a successful franchise system?
Successful franchise system, I think that if you just take a look as a franchisor, sticking with that subject, is you really got to offer your franchisee a business in a box. You got to be able to offer them all the training materials. The great thing now versus when we first started the joint is there's a lot of online tools now available that are able to put that training into online systems that weren't available before. You need to have great marketing systems. I mean, marketing has changed rapidly. You need to stay on top of that. I mean, social media wasn't even in existence back in 2010. Now it's the primary vehicle for promotion. But really, you need to be aware that when that person writes you a check, there is an expectation of what you're going to deliver. It's always, you're never going to get it perfect, but you also have to have some good two-way communication. We learned a lot and still learn a lot. For example, at the joint, I'm not, again, involved even on the board level anymore, but I still hear feedback. I still go into the clinics and you hear, oh, well, there's a new idea that a franchisee had. You need to be open to that two-way communication, but make no mistake about it. You need to provide them that foundation to where, other than actually physically hiring the people that are working there, you've trained them to where they can, turn on the lights and open up the door and operate the business. If you're not ready yet, you really shouldn't franchise.
That makes sense. And I like how you said that it's not going to be perfect. The importance is having that two-way communication. So that way, then where those imperfections exist or challenges arise, you have a really nice working relationship between the franchisee and the franchisor so that you can sort it out.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I have seen franchise systems that are so rigid to where they're not open to input. And to me, there's some give and take. There's a fine line between somebody going rogue and somebody giving you really valid feedback. As you know, we've heard the legendary stories behind, McDonald's, several of the great ideas, and many other, systems. Have had great ideas come from franchisees. So you got to stay open, but you also have to respect the brand. And so I would just encourage, you've got rules. If somebody wants to bring an idea to the table, stay open to that and don't have, the police all over them. I mean, you still got to run a good location, though. You can't run a sloppy location. Good systems are always doing spot checks. And a franchisee, frankly, should look at that as not a negative, but a plus. Oh, they came in and they found something I could improve upon. Not that it was wrong. It's like, no, it's something you can improve upon. Again, I've seen franchise systems where they come in and they're dying to find something wrong with their location, or the people that they've hired feel that is their job. That isn't the way you should look at it. It's like, all right, how can we help this franchisee, and how can I maybe give some feedback to the franchisor? It's a two-way communication.
Yeah, no, that's great suggestions and advice. And I've seen similar situations where the franchisor, be it never communicates with the franchisee or is looking to kind of come in with an iron fist and smash a hammer down on them. And to your point, it's let's work together. We're moving in the same direction there.
And also to that point, Tom, if you're a franchisor, trust me, prospective franchisees are going to make some calls. The smart ones anyway will call around because it's in your FDD, all your current franchisees. They're going to call around and find out the good, bad, and ugly. So don't think that anything negative is going to catch up with you.
Prospective franchisees are hopefully calling others in the system. You certainly want them to. Those are the kinds of franchisees you want in your franchise system. They're going to do their homework and do the extra legwork. Richard, we have 4 questions we ask everyone, and I'm very excited to get your feedback on these. The first question we ask every guest is, have you had a miss or 2 in your career and something you learned from it?
Yeah, 2 misses. Never worked with family. And that's my father and I decided, let's do something together. Now, I know many family businesses have done well for themselves, but I would urge caution if you're looking to bring in a partner for your business, whether it's a best friend or a family member. There's some give and take. I mean, my father, thank goodness, and I survived the test, but it was just like after a year, this clearly isn't working for either one of us. And so I would encourage caution, not even, it's beyond just family members. Before you take on a partner, be very wary of that. The second big one that I learned early is not making a change fast enough. And whether that's in personnel or in, I need to change this direction. There were several cases that, especially when it came to personnel, it took me a couple of times to figure out that there was just some people in the building that weren't working out. And, you'd sit down, you talk to them, and after about 2 or 3 times of talking to them, it's not getting any better. In one case in particular, when I finally let the person go, the other people in the building came to me and were like, what took you so long? The lesson was, if your gut is telling you, and it's not even gut, if it's obvious it's not working out, whether it's on a business structure or on somebody in your building, move with urgency. Don't put it off and think it's going to fix itself. It won't. You've got to be urgent with that move.
Well, let's talk about a make. We'll look at the other side. You've shared some already. We've discussed some at least at a high level. Are there some makes personally, professionally you'd like to share?
Well, really, I mean, I think the big make for me is the fact that I am happy. And I think that's real critical for any business owner. You're in business for the right reasons. And you get up in the morning, and that is frankly what charges me up, and that I don't have to work for anybody else. And that's, again, that's not for everybody. But if you're happy, that's when I look back and say, man, I've done well financially, but that really wasn't what drove me. What drove me is I wanted to do something to, whether it's introduce new music to people, introduce better healthcare to people, affordable healthcare, introduce happiness in ice cream cone or a great food product. So to me, that's, at the end of the day, I go, you know what? I'm happy. That's my success.
Let's talk about a multiplier. The name of the show is Multiply Your Success. And I always love this question. We get such great responses. So have you used a multiplier in growing yourself or your businesses?
Absolutely. I mean, my multiplier for me, when you first, it is my network of people and team. When I have it, when you have a full-time business going, it's the team you surround yourself with. But still, I have this network that I built over time. Thank goodness for LinkedIn. That has helped build that network. But I encourage all entrepreneurs and people in general to have a network that you can go to and say, hey, I need XYZ. Do you know how to do this? Or do you have somebody that can do this or knows somebody that can do it? So I would highly, for me, it's been the network, because I've got a great group of people, of peers, mentors, call it what you will, that I can turn to, and they will, and I'm very grateful to that network. So you can't take advantage of it. Let me make it clear. You've got to do it, and you do it sparingly, but over time, you'll become a part of somebody else's network, and you can give feedback to as well.
The final question we ask every guest, Richard, is what does success mean to you?
Success, I mentioned it earlier, is really happiness. I'm able to provide to friends and family, but really it's getting up and being happy. When I was starving in my early days in radio, I was still happy because I was surrounded by a high energy atmosphere, great music. Again, introducing music to people was, to me, that was a reward. So it's really about being happy and knowing that when you leave this earth, that, hey, you didn't burn any bridges either. So to me, that's success. I didn't burn any bridges, didn't screw anybody over. Everything was above board. I can, leave 5 minutes from now and know, okay, I did good.
Well, and as we bring this to a close, Richard, is there anything you were hoping to share or get across you haven't had a chance to yet?
I think, the main thing is, or there's two main points. I encourage all business owners to figure out what their unique selling proposition is. You've heard this multiple times, and it can't be like, well, I want to offer the best cookie in the world. It's like, well, no, why, what is that? Okay, what is that best cookie uniqueness that you can offer people? Find that unique thing that you can hang your hat on. And then number two, what are you really providing? Again, affordable healthcare. Well, why am I providing affordable healthcare? Because I would like somebody not to be in pain at the end of the day. Why do you want to have a great ice cream cone? Well, I want to create memories for families, and they go in and again, put them in a happy place. So take a think about why you're doing this business. It can't be just purely for money. There's too many people out there that do things purely for money, and trust me, it's not going to bring you happiness.
We were talking before we went to hit record on the show. You had mentioned that you're kind of searching or looking for potentially another investment or opportunity to get involved with. We might as well take this opportunity to see if anyone might fit what you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, we're really looking for a dessert concept that can scale, that is also repetitive, if you will. I mean, God bless the guys at Crumble. They've hit it out of the ballpark with something that, cookies. Now you're seeing a dozen cookie companies come about. I like the dessert space just because you can get in and out. It's not complex, but it needs to be, again, something really unique. Unique, but also it doesn't take forever to make. And maybe you're on the quest for something that doesn't exist anymore. But that's kind of where we're at Monarch Ventures really looking at. Because we've seen several and invested minor sums in a few that we like. But we would like to scale that at a national level to where people can go, hey, I can start a business. Here's the business in the box for you. And again, you're bringing happiness to people. And it sounds like, I'm Forrest Gump, but, it's a very happy, I think happiness is really key to having a good life. So we'd love to find something that, and again, a great operator that knows what he doesn't know. Some people call it coachable. Some people call it other things, but going back to Dr. Fred, he knew what he didn't know and gladly said, here, I know how to do chiropractic, and that's it.
Richard, thank you so much for a fantastic interview. And let's go ahead and jump into today's 3 key takeaways. So takeaway number 1 is when Richard shared with us some of the things that he thinks are important to create and build a successful franchise system. And one of the things he said is that the franchisor needs to offer a franchisee a business in a box and also remember that it's not going to be perfect. So there's a balance mixed in there. And he also said it's important to have two-way communication with the franchisee. So from the franchisor to the franchisee, that it's a two-way communication channel, not a one-way being forced down to the franchisee. And to remember to not view suggestions from your franchisees as finding something wrong with your system. Rather, it's a way of improving. Those were great little bits of information from someone that's had a lot of success in the franchise community. Takeaway number 2 is when he described what his multiplier has been throughout his career. And for him, he said it has been his network of people, mentors, contacts, his greater connection base that he's established and maintained over the years. And he said it's always been wonderful to be able to reach out to that network when needed. He also added another comment a little later where he said he also made sure not to burn any bridges along the way too. That certainly helps keep that network strong and keep it open. Takeaway number 3 came at the end of the episode, right as we were about to conclude, and he said that he encourages all business owners to figure out what their unique selling proposition is and to ask yourself the question, what are you really providing to your customer? And you might want to ask yourself that 3 or 4 or 5 different times and see if you get different answers. And now it's time for today's win-win. So today's win-win is when Richard talked about what makes him happy and that he feels happy and has happiness in what he does. And I really thought that stood out. One of the things he said that makes him happy was just being his own boss, not having to work for anyone else. But I thought the real key takeaway is that he was always driven by doing something, number 1, that he enjoys, and number 2, in which he was helping other people. So he said whether he was introducing new music to people, affordable healthcare through the joint franchise, or his new opportunities pursuing the dessert business. He said money was never really the primary driver of why he did things. He was always interested and was happy doing what he was doing, and money was just a byproduct of figuring out a solution that people enjoyed. So I thought that was just a great takeaway as the episode concludes and just the wisdom that Richard shares. So Richard, really want to thank you again for your time for our interview. So that's the episode today, folks. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast and give us a review. And remember, if you or anyone you know might be ready to franchise their business or take their franchise company to the next level, please connect with us at BigSkyFranchiseTeam.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to having you back next week.